Alright, now we want to talk about pollinators. Excuse me. And the ones that we think about the most are insects. Um, there are also birds that pollinate. You see there the hummingbird, and bats will also pollinate. Now looking at the fruit types and the way the seeds are dispersed. A fruit is a mature ovary. You've got different kinds of fruits. You have simple fruits, which come from a single ovary, and it can have one or more chambers. And then you have compound fruits that develop from several groups of ovaries. Within the compound fruits, you've got aggregate fruits where the ovaries came from a single flower on one receptacle, like a blackberry. And then you've got compound fruits that are multiple fruits where the ovaries from separate flowers are clustered together, like in a pineapple. Now, how does the fruit develop? You're looking at a peach. Okay, that's a good fruit. What happens is the ovary wall thickens and it becomes what's called the pericarp, which you can see here. That's the pericarp. And it has three layers. It has the exocarp, which is the outer skin, the mesocarp, which is the fleshy tissue that you eat, and it's between the exocarp and the endocarp. And then the endocarp is the boundary that's around the seed. In the fleshy fruits, the pericarp is soft and fleshy when it's mature, and that's what we eat. In dry fruits, it's papery, leathery, or woody when it's mature, and we're talking about legumes and cereal grains here. If it's dehiscent or dehiscent, I always say that word wrong. The fruit splits open when it's ripe, like the legumes. The pea pods will split open when they're ripe. If it's indehiscent, the fruit doesn't split open when it's ripe, and that would be your grains. And both of these are dry fruits. And you can see here some examples of fruits. You've got a drupe, like a peach. A berry is like a tomato. A legume here, like the peas. This is an aggregate fruit, blackberry. This is a multiple fruit, the pineapple. And a dry, indehiscent fruit here, where you've got like one of your nuts or grains, like your grains here. Now, back to pollination and dispersal. Many of your dry fruits are dispersed by wind. They'll have woolly hairs or plumes or wings, and the wind just blows them. If it's a fleshy fruit, it will attract the animals that want to eat them. And then, of course, the animals move around and go to the bathroom and disperse their seeds, like peaches and cherries and tomatoes. You see the little woolly hairs that are sticking on the dog. It carries it around, they come off, and of course the bird eating the berries. Then the seeds have to germinate, where the embryo starts to grow again, and there's metabolic activity that occurs. The length of the time that the seeds retain their viability is very variable. Some of them don't have much of a dormancy, others have a very long time. It just depends. Some seeds don't germinate until they've been through a dormant period where no growth happens. This happens a lot in temperate zones that have cold weather. In the cold weather, they're dormant. And then when the weather gets warmer and there's sufficient water and oxygen, they will begin to germinate. Now, what do we need from the environment for this to happen? Oxygen, temperature, and moisture. And this is just showing you how a eudicot and a monocot will germinate. Corn is the monocot over here on the right, and you see that it germinates here. If you plant that corn, it's going to grow downward and upward. You're going to have shoots and roots systems, and it has a primary root. If it is a eudicot like this bean, it's going to do the same thing, except you see you're going to have 2 seed leaves, 2 cotyledons, and here, and so it's going to develop in a little bit differently, because you can see the shoot system is more well developed. And what about asexual reproduction? Plants have this non-differentiated meristem tissue, and that allows them to reproduce asexually just by vegetative propagation. For instance, the stolons, the horizontal stems that grow above ground. The rhizomes, which are underground stems like potatoes. Tubers are rhizomes. And then cuttings. You take a little piece. I've been to the nursery with my mother many times, and she would get cuttings of different plants where they just give her a little bit of the stem, and she would go home and either put it in water or put it in the soil, and it would begin to germinate and grow. And also plants make that hormone we talked about previously called auxin, and that'll cause roots to develop, and it also makes them more likely to propagate from a cutting. And this is a strawberry plant, which that is horizontal stems above the ground. That's stolons there for asexual reproduction.